Axe may kill Radio National.
ABC to cut services.
ABC faces awful program cuts.
Welcome to Media Watch and to one of the longest running stories in Australia. Those headlines, of course, were not from this week, but from previous bouts of slashing the national broadcaster in 1989, 1991 and 1996. And there's plenty more where they came from.
ABC to cut regional broadcasts.
Across-the-board cuts plan for ABC.
ABC chiefs upset by new cuts.
In only 3 of the last 15 years have cuts to the ABC been off the agenda. And last week they were right back on again.
ABC cuts news, current affairs, jobs frozen.
ABC has secret plan to sack 100 staff. Senator.
Perth radio staff cut.
West Australian staff of ABC Radio's AM, World Today and PM programs have been cut, leaving one journalist to cover the state for 3 programs.
The only surprise in this story of serial slashing is that the latest attack has come from the management and not the government. Just 4 months ago, the ABC's new managing director, Jonathan Shier, was painting a wonderful picture of the future in which he would transform public broadcasting.
We want to be omnipresent. We want every time you switch on a television or an EPG, up comes the ABC. Damn it, those ABC people just keep coming into our lives. We want more Australians. We want to touch more Australians. We want more Australians to think we're relevant to their lives than do at the moment.
So far, the main feature of Shirer's new ABC is that it has more top managers, paid more money, and a redundancy bill of at least $3 million. Meanwhile, some of Auntie's best talent has left or been sacked, but the new vision is still on hold. The ABC's bid to get $194 million more from government was turned down flat in May. And when Shier came back to staff 10 days ago, it was to tell them to do more with less.
I have to say to you, a 3.2% change in funding happens a lot in Australia. I mean, 3.2 is not Armageddon.
Shier was told he had caused fear and confusion among ABC employees.
As Deputy Staff Elected Director, I've been asked by many of my colleagues to ask some questions that they're too afraid to ask you. I have a whole list of them here. This underlines the atmosphere of fear and confusion that you've created in this organisation since you've arrived.
And if he couldn't read hostility in the faces of his staff, all he had to do was open the papers.
It is hard to tell whether Shier is more loathed than ridiculed among the 4,000 plus staff he is supposed to be leading.
It's Shier madness.
Shier's speech was at times all but incomprehensible. He was so silly at times yesterday you felt sorry for him. The poor bloke knows zero about public broadcasting and in all probability should never have been appointed.
Last week, Shier went to Canberra to lobby for money yet again. But so far the answer is still no. First, the PM told him,
"We provide the ABC with a good budget and it's up to the ABC as an independent broadcaster to decide how the money is allocated."
Next came the Minister for Communications.
Not a penny more, Alston tells Shier.
The ABC's bid for extra funding already appears doomed, with the federal government yesterday saying there was no need for it.
And finally, the Nats added their 2 pennyworth.
ABC told to do more with less.
National Party leader John Anderson yesterday poured cold water on ABC Managing Director Jonathan Shier's hopes of securing more funding for the national broadcaster.
The latest news is Mr Shier has upped the stakes, telling the Courier Mail that if he doesn't get the money, he's going.
Shier may quit over ABC fight.
Mr Shier indicated he would review his future if the government did not accede to his demands.
I have made it clear that I am not interested in managing decline,
he said.
The chairman of the ABC board, who appointed him, is Donald McDonald. So, what does he believe will happen next? And does he think that Jonathan Shier might really quit?
No, I think he's said in earlier interviews that he regards getting the necessary resources for the ABC as a crucial part of his job. So I think he's really just signalling that he still sees that as an important part of his job.
The government's all but told the ABC they're not going to get the money. What are you going to do if he does go?
Well, I'm not sure that the government has been as absolute as that. And as I said, I hope that neither eventuality occurs.
But what apart from hope? The government has said this week, has made it very clear. Alston's made it clear. John Howard's made it clear. The Nats, as a group, have made it clear. There is no more money to be had.
Well, we're not finished yet. We're still working on this. We, the ABC board and senior management, are still working on this.
Can I read you some of the headlines about Mr. Shier? Shier or Shire madness, The Age. Shire's ABC vision still a blur.
Quite a tiresome play on words, that one, isn't it?
Yes, but it's a point of view, isn't it? It's one of our major national papers calling the managing director mad, essentially. Shire's ABC vision still a blur from the Oz. Incoherent, embarrassing, without substance, that's Errol Simper. Woeful, Amanda Mead. Now, doesn't that concern you that your managing director has provoked that sort of reaction from the critics?
It concerns me that there's not a really more mature and less partisan debate going on. You're reading comments that are coming from those who are amongst our principal competition.
Well, my impression of these particular people is that they are honest critics, and in fact that they are friends of the ABC. It doesn't seem to me to be a very adequate response that these are our enemies.
They're our competitors. I didn't say they were our enemies.
Is that all you can say to those sorts of criticisms of the man that you have chosen to run this corporation?
Well, I could go on to characterise them as being misguided, unfair, but my starting point is that they speak through the organ of our competitor.
It seems to me, at least at the PR level, it's been something of a disaster, this appointment.
Well, this is an appointment that it's in its first year, where changes are called for, changes are being carried through. Changes disturb people, one understands that. But that's the phase we're in, and we will see it through.
Can you reassure viewers about what is going to happen to their ABC in terms of cuts to programmes? Will there be cuts to programmes, do you think?
I've already said that I don't believe that there will be material cuts that viewers or listeners will be aware of. Is
that a promise that there will be no cuts, or is that what status does that have exactly?
But what do you mean by no cuts? That we'll suddenly be black for 3 hours of the day on the television?
No, for example, are programmes like Four Corners safe? Are programmes like Foreign Correspondence safe? Programmes like our own programme safe? Lateline, 7:30 Report. There's a whole series of programmes.
Well, those
is the output of the ABC basically safe?
Those programmes are within the decision area of the Director of News and Current Affairs and his staff. They have a budget that they will live within, must live within, and they will make the decisions as to how they do that.
They say that's going to mean 100 staff and possibly other cuts. How do you cut that sort of amount without affecting quality and output and putting things at risk?
Well, I'm not the Director of News and Current Affairs. It is for the people who are the professionals on the day-to-day basis to make the decision how they so organise their resources to do that.
But you must have an idea of the impact of cuts, and the News and Current Affairs departments say that 100 out of 700 people is the sort of cut that's necessary. Now, that's a major cut. They're also talking of cutting overseas bureaus, for example. No reassurance on that?
It sounds, on a percentage basis, to be quite an overreaction to me, to put it mildly.
These are cuts that come on top of cuts over many years. If the cuts that are going to have to be made are more serious than you are telling us now, what will you do about it?
What do you mean, what will I do?
Well, is there a point at which you as chairman, in the same way that there seems to be a point that Jonathan Shier would do, you say, the cuts are too severe. They hurt me too much as a man who loves the ABC.
You're casting yourself in the role of the Courier Mail, trying to get me to make
to be
a Jonathan Shier sort of assertion.
But is there?
Well, I'm not a petulant sort of a bloke, I don't think, mostly.
So there isn't?
Look, that's a hypothetical question
yes,
about
I know,
the
but situation
after next.
People before, I think David Hill was the one who talked about the ABC dying by 1,000 cuts. We have had cuts ever since I've been in this organisation. It seems to be a perennial. And there comes a point, we're already, I understand, much cheaper at producing news and commercial TV. Does there not come a point where you just say, look, it's just not on to keep doing this?
Well, look, of course, hypothetically and imaginally, one could imagine such a point. I haven't worked in the area of what I would describe as high-quality public presentations, whether it was chamber music, theatre or opera. Haven't worked at all of that, trying to make all that work in Australia for 30 years simply to be chairman of an organisation going out of existence. Of course I haven't.
We've been told we've got to do more with less.
I've heard that memorable phrase.
Is it doing more with less to spend a lot more money on managers, as this managing director or administration seems to be doing? I mean, $1.2 million on senior managers, as far as we can see. Maybe something like 3 or 4 million management throughout the organisation. 2 or 3 million, maybe more on redundancies. Is that a way to do more with less?
Well, I'm not quite sure about, so I'm not actually confirming the figures you're using. I think what we do have for the first time with this management is now a published list of all of the management positions within the ABC. That's been posted on the ABC's own intranet, so that for the first time everybody can see all the positions that are called management positions. That's, I think, a major first step to transparency in the structure of the organisation.
And those will cost more than the previous lot you had, is that not so?
I don't know if they will
shouldn't
or
you know?
they won't. No, I'm not the accountant here.
No, but I mean, if I tell you there were before there were 7 portfolio heads who were paid 1.4 million, and there are now 13 directors of divisions who are paid 2.6 million, would you tell me that's wrong?
No, I would tell you that that's a change in the structure, that what we have is a much flatter management structure with more people, executive directors, sitting at the executive director table, this very table, when they meet with the managing director and reporting directly to him.
But it is also a structure that costs more, isn't it?
Well, I don't believe it is, but really you've cast the wrong actor here. Those questions should be put to the managing director. They're detailed questions about how he's applying that budget within each of those areas.
But you appointed him?
Indeed. The board did, yes.
Are you still happy with him?
Absolutely.
Another way to do more with less, it seems to me, is to increase the morale of those who are working for you. Do you think you do that, or do you think a managing director does that by wholesale sackings, wholesale changes? And we looked at his address to staff. He used the word I 570 times in a little over an hour. That's something like 10 times every minute. Is I the word he should be using? Shouldn't he be saying we to everybody? Isn't that one of the problems?
I wonder who had the time to count 570
Obviously,
hours.
we're overstaffed.
Look, I think people have different sorts of usages. We express ourselves differently in these regards.
What's your vision for the ABC's future?
That it continue to be a major player in the country's intellectual and cultural life, that it continue to be the great mirror of our society, that it continue to be part of that extraordinary glue that holds this country together.
Do you think there's sympathy for that point of view in Canberra on either side?
There jolly well ought to be.
ABC Chairman Donald McDonald. And due to cuts in previous years, this is the last Media Watch this year. Thanks for joining us, and special thanks to all those who've sent us tips and comments during the year. We hope we'll be back next year on Your ABC. We'll see you then.